Biggest free agent story in baseball, I think, in 31 years. Last time the reigning MVP signed with a new team, it was Barry Bonds to the Giants in 92, and Ohtani might be getting ready to do that. So let's start with the cuts here, Wolchuk. A couple from Morosi you were telling me you had?
Yeah, there's two from John Morosi here. One is just talking about Ohtani and where he would rather play. Is geography a big deal? We kind of had heard, maybe West Coast. Maybe he wants to stay and sign with the Dodgers. But according to Morosi, it's more important for him that he's playing with a good team.
What I'll tell you is this. After speaking with people around the industry and those more familiar with Shohei's thinking, the difference between this free agency and the first time that he came to North America is that he is probably less concerned about geography and more concerned about the quality of the team that he's going to. Yes, money is going to matter. We know that. Yes, the Dodgers probably remain the favorites to sign him, and they are a West Coast team, and they have got the capacity to spend. That's the really key thing with the Dodgers. Not only is it a very quality team that wins the division basically every year in the last decade, but they've got a lot of room to spend and build a roster out around him.
He must have figured out a way to keep him relaxed up there in the plane if I'm not that worried about geography anymore. I mean, that's like 3.5 extra hours in the plane to come to Texas from Japan. So I don't know. Maybe he's got one of those beds that you took on that flight to Saudi Arabia where you can just like chill and take a nap.
I was 3 inches away from being completely laid out in an airplane.
Gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah. That
is a luxury.
But I've assumed that that Ohtani would ultimately end up with the Dodgers.
Me too.
Because you get a recent World Series champion, you get a mega brand. Your marketing and endorsements is going to be 3 or 4 times as big if you're in LA compared to most any other market. But let's see how this plays out, Wolchuk.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Ken Rosenthal today was talking on Foul Territory, and he said, quote, "The one team I expect to be somewhat serious for Ohtani is the Texas Rangers. Are they going to keep spending?" He believes, yes, they will. The other team that's emerged that Ohtani has expressed possible interest in playing for is the Atlanta Braves. And that would certainly indicate he really doesn't care about the geography, right? And he just thinks the Braves are a good team. They can win, and he'd be interested in going there. The Giants are expected in San Francisco to make a move to try and get him as well. So there's some other teams to look at. But when Ken Rosenthal comes out and says, hey, Texas is serious, that's just another one of these insiders that are really plugged in that I do think the Rangers are going to be maybe the final 2 finalists.
And I think it's important to say that because there was a long stretch of time where the Rangers would reportedly be in for the biggest free agents, but they never really had a shot. And now they do. Now, if you just hear about it, you assume that they have the ear of the player and the agent, and the player is legitimately interested in getting here. I think the ballpark changed a lot, but I think winning changes a lot, and I think Bruce Bochy changes a lot.
But I think 100% the ballpark players love it. All the away players that come in here. Ohtani certainly has had a ton of success playing in this venue. We heard from Corey Seager when he signed here. The ballpark was certainly an attractive quality, and you're not playing in those 100-degree days out there outside in the summer, which really would beat down. We always heard that. That was a big reason why the Rangers weren't able to land free agents. John Morosi also continuing on that the Rangers among the top teams to pursue another big-name free agent.
I think one thing is really interesting that we saw even among the teams that played deep into October, and indeed even the one that won it all in the Texas Rangers, they had some bullpen questions. So I'm going to go straight to those teams that are either trying to repeat as World Series champs like the Rangers or get there like the Phillies when you consider the struggles of Craig Kimbrell and the overall lack of reliable bullpen innings they had late in those games in the NLCS. I look at both the Rangers and Phillies as strong candidates to sign Josh Hader. You mentioned him there, the multiple-time All-Star. He is, I believe, the top of the class of free agent relief pitchers. There are some good ones out there, but Hader, when you think about his pedigree, look at those numbers from this past year. A 1.28 ERA, 33 saves. He's the best around, and I think when you consider the Padres and the fact that they're potentially going to move Juan Soto, probably hard for them to re-sign Josh Hader. So I would say, again, those two teams, Rangers, Phillies, top of the list pursuing Josh Hader.
I don't think I'd go after Josh Hader, but I think it makes more sense from a salary cap management perspective or a luxury tax threshold perspective, more accurately, when it comes to baseball. And I want to know from you guys, do you feel like the fact that the Rangers won the World Series will take away the appetite for real risky spending. Because if you go to Ohtani, you're putting yourself at 270, which is 20 million more than you were at last year when you were already 25 million over the luxury tax threshold. I think that because you got it, you don't feel like we're going for it and we're going to do whatever it takes to bring a World Series championship to DFW. Now that you got it, you can say, okay, we don't need to be like, hey, time's ticking, let's go get this World Series. Let's take a bigger term approach to this. Yeah. It's not mandatory we throw everything at getting it right now.
That's a fascinating question because I think we saw that right with the Mavericks to an extent. Chris Young's the reason why I do think that this is they want to sustain success. They don't want this to be a flash in the pan. They don't want this to be a one-year wonder. He wants to build something special, and the word dynasty could potentially be used, right? So I do think...
So you're going into $300 million, I think, if you bring in Ohtani, because you still need a starter and multiple relievers.
So here's the one thing about Ohtani that's also an interesting development, and we mentioned this because he's not going to be pitching the upcoming season. There's now a report out, according to Jeff Passan, that he could take a short-term deal with a higher annual average income, similar to what we've seen some other guys take, where you're making maybe $50 million a year.
LeBron.
But that way he can then re-hit the market when he is ready to pitch. So maybe you sign him to a 2-year, $100 million deal or something like that, and then when he's ready to go and he can pitch again to sign a more lucrative deal, he then re-hits the market.
This is what I'm doing, and I bet you, I don't know if Chris Young they probably thought about this. You go out there and you continue to add mega star players, and all of a sudden it doesn't put any pressure on your farm system. And now when you're ready to move on, when those guys are, maybe those players aren't playing at a high level anymore, your farm system's ready to step. So you're never fully tanking. Your guys, if say Ohtani does play for 2 years and all of a sudden, he leaves, but now you've got guys ready in the farm system.
Yeah.
Wyatt Lang, we got guys, they don't have to tax or push their farm system because they've got veteran players in place already that they don't have to go down there and get these guys, and they can let these guys develop a little more and then bring them up when they're absolutely ready.
It would be tremendous if you could add Ohtani. I think be surprised. Let me see here. 817, Gavin, it isn't your money. Spend that money and bring us a dynasty, says the 817. I know. I'm not worried about spending Ray Davis's money. I'm just talking about like what is realistic. And maybe I need to dream bigger. Maybe I need to think, hell, they are going to be the second team to go into $300 million payroll in the history of the big leagues.
I just feel like that if you go get a guy like Ohtani, he makes up for everything when it comes to, not only is he a great baseball player, but the ticket sales, the jerseys, the media attention. I mean, you make the sponsorship opportunities. You get that money back.
Okay, more on Ohtani here from Jeff Passan. I'll give you the relevant details here from this piece. He said he does deeply respect the Dodgers' winning ways and their ability to develop players and their coaching. He appreciates the Rangers, not just for their 2023 World Series win, but the fact that early in his career when he was playing in Japan, they expressed strong interest in him.
Yeah.
He loves visiting Boston and has a fondness for Fenway Park. So those are a few insights.
When you bring him here, just put up on that big board out there, just every time he smashes a ball into the outfield. I mean, because he hits, I don't think there's another ballpark. I might be wrong.
He crushes.
Yeah. This ballpark, he absolutely just terrorizes the Rangers in.
So did Corey Seager. Well, Corey Seager terrorized other opponents at this ballpark.
Yeah.
But, I think you have some good material for making a highlight video for recruiting Shohei. The Dodgers, Rangers, and Red Sox are all expected to be in the Ohtani sweepstakes, according to sources. And though the industry's overwhelmingly expectation is that he winds up with the Dodgers, that line of thinking is perhaps presumptive, writes Passan. The Dodgers do have advantages: financial, geographical, on-field success. They also have a history of signing larger deals on their terms. Yeah. And with Ohtani coming off an elbow ligament surgery in October, that will keep him from pitching in 24, raising a legitimate question about what his future pitching looks like. The prospect of plopping down $500 million guaranteed goes against how the Dodgers traditionally operate. Okay, there's your window of opportunity. Ultimately, this will come down to Ohtani's priorities. If it's money he wants, nobody has more than the Mets to spend. If it's a residence in Japan, no relationship between team and player matches that of the Mariners, with
Yes.
Ichiro.
Yeah. That's
Okay, so maybe you don't get the most Japan love. And if it's comfort, he can just go back to the Angels, who gave him relative carte blanche the past 6 years. That might sound good to me, where you're comfortable. But you have no confidence right now that you can even get to the playoffs.
He
with
wants
the
to
Angels.
win, man.
Yeah,
He wants to win. You could tell, like, after the trade deadline, they go in they lost like 6 straight games, and they kept showing him, and he was just so defeated
yeah.
that, like, man, they kept me around, and here we are.
You love to see that, I think.
Yeah.
That's the difference of a guy like him and, like, is Mike Trout just happy to be there? Like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to spend my entire career. I'm going to hit 40 home runs, hit like 320, and fans are going to love me. And we'll never be in the playoffs. That would just drive me crazy.
Yeah.
It would,
It's so sad.
It'd be one thing if you're getting to the playoffs, you're not winning at all. At least you're getting close and you're having some success. Like, what is that? Where is your competitive mindset if you're okay with not even making the playoffs and just let your career play out?
Well, he's had a lot of days where now he's been hurt. I mean, he's probably just, he's like, when he plays, he's tremendous. But there's a lot of days where he doesn't show up and play because of how injured he is.